market in Banda Aceh. The catch is in and business is brisk. Once again, the sea sustains this place. On a day like this, it's hard to imagine that just 5 years ago, the sea raised settlements up and down the coast and almost wiped Banda Aceh off the map.
Ala bangkan lupona ala pengubah ala tamtum lagi untuk gede tung tung bum bum bangnya ala tu ngengkeng that tu tiga lagi tu bum gudung tiga keng that botuhan ali botuhan ala baru tsunami.
Terrifying force, the tsunami smashed its way inland, flattening vast tracts of Aceh and killing more than 170,000 people.
Tsunami lah dijak rennya kampung dekat keram ni pada airnya gulung aja gulung gitu ke gelombang. Ibu gelombang dari likut kamu gelombang laju gelombang hitam kaya di gelombang ala bantu kena tu kamu di jalan ni peluang nak siap iyalah ya sampai penuh anak mandu tinggal pusat rumah tu.
It was just so horrible, and I would think about the families, the people who might have been here, and there was just nothing left, nothing.
No sooner had the waves receded than aid poured in. Billions of dollars pledged by governments and the public, stunned by the scale of the devastation.
It's hard for me to believe I had seen what I had seen before, because it's all so different now.
Sarah Henderson's a retired merchant banker based in Jakarta, who first came to Aceh just a month after the tsunami struck.
It was just nothing. I mean, all this was nothing. You have to think to yourself that this water here came up 30 feet high, moving the speed of an airplane.
She felt compelled to help. She got in a car and drove down the coast just as far as she could go. And that brought her here to what remained of Rumput.
Most of those people's eyes were dead. I mean, they just looked to me like the walking dead. Oh, God, it was terrible.
Across Aceh, 400,000 people had been left homeless, and in this village, little was left standing. So this grandmother, then a sprightly 65, raided her retirement savings and hatched a plan to help the villagers rebuild.
They were in tents in the mud, and parts of the tents were hanging down, and there was garbage all over, and it was horrible. It was just horrible.
Sofyan and his wife Rose escaped with their lives, but lost everything else. Their baby girl, their house, their family, and friends.
Pas kami naik ke atas gunung, jadi kita tengok ke desa kita udah laut semua. Maksudnya pasir kan, masih berair sikit-sikit itu. Jadi udah bukan anak lagi, udah terpikir sama keluarga semua.
There seemed little hope, until the arrival of a complete stranger. With Sarah Henderson's help, Rose and Sofyan built a new home. Eventually, they'd start a new family.
Saya merasakan nikmat dari tsunami setelah Ibu Sarah masuk ke desa kami. Jadi pas Sarah datang, Sarah program untuk membuat rumah. Jadi kita sudah dapat titik terang.
Sarah Henderson quickly learned that providing aid in a meaningful way calls for careful management and plenty of consultation.
I think the biggest lesson I learned was to listen. We think our own culture is so great, we try to impose it on other people. When I was designing the houses, I thought, oh, how great, I'll give them an inside bathroom, I'll give them an inside kitchen, oh, this is going to be wonderful. And when they saw the plan, they were horrified. And they said, no, they didn't want the bathroom inside, they didn't want the kitchen inside. And so I think listening is very, very important.
It's lucky you asked them in the first place.
Yes, it was. Otherwise, they would have all had houses they hated. It would have been terrible.
Just up the road, it's easy to see what mistakes can be made and have been made by others. At the height of the reconstruction effort, there were more than 1,000 aid groups helping here. But some of that goodwill has gone to waste. These houses look livable, and yet they're empty, built for phantom villages in an uncoordinated building boom.
The empty houses are all over here.
And that means in other parts of the province, Acehnese remain homeless.
What are you going to do? You're going to force somebody from another village to move into this village? This village won't let people move into this village.
How did it happen that houses were built for people who don't even exist?
Because nobody bothered to check. Nobody ever bothered to verify. When I came here, I knew there were 31 people. I could see the people. I could touch the people. I could watch them move into their houses.
Why would this happen?
The contractors get rich. The guy who brings in the sand, all the suppliers get rich.
It's a shame, eh?
Yep. It's terrible. Even if you didn't build houses, the money that was spent on this could have gone into long-term development.
As the enormous and chaotic aid effort rolled out, something else dramatic and fundamental was emerging. This, after all, was a place riven by a 30-year civil war, with separatists trying to wrench Aceh from Jakarta and Jakarta fighting hard to hold on. But it was becoming clear that the tsunami that had done so much damage had also washed away the war.
The tsunami, had alerted the people of Aceh that this is the only chance for better life, for peace, for the Acehnese.
His bike is an old Dutch colonial classic. But these days, former separatist Noordin Abdul Rahman is in control here, the Biruan district on Aceh's east coast. His fellow travellers include Indonesian businessmen and soldiers, as well as former rebels.
It must have required from you a lot of forgiveness.
It is nice to forgive and also release the burden in your heart instead of thinking about it all the time. So just forget it and just to enjoy the reality in your life.
Acehnese have a long history of struggling for independence, dating back to the first Dutch invasion of the 1870s. 100 years later, the fight was with Indonesia's central government in Jakarta. While the region was rich in oil and gas, its people saw little of the profits. That fueled discontent and a yearning for independence.
The military seemed to be so harsh. People were afraid to express their opinions, and we found ourselves like being targeted all the time.
Nurdin Abdul Rahman was one of those rousing the rebellion, and one day, after making a passionate speech about injustice at his local mosque, he was arrested.
I was treated so badly at that time. They put electric shock in my body. They pulled my nails, which was so painful.
When he was released 9 years later, the rebel became refugee. He fled Aceh and sought asylum in Australia.
How did you feel about your life there?
Happy. Yeah, I felt secure. Except that I was away from my family.
That separation from loved ones proved too much to bear when the tsunami came. He just had to return, and when he did, it was to an Aceh he never thought he'd see. Conflict had given way to cooperation.
This 30 meters. Yeah,
the rebel group, GAM, had agreed to end the war, and in exchange, Jakarta promised autonomy and financial support.
This used to be a stronghold of GAM before, so that's why we could not construct this dam during the conflict. Without peace, this wouldn't have been possible. I think our children will live a better life in future.
5 years on from that dramatic political shift, the district leader now has to deal with festering disappointment. A perception among some Acehnese that Jakarta has welched on its side of the deal.
The promise was they could get land and jobs, but the danger is if you cannot provide them, if you cannot meet the promise, then they become frustrated. Frustration could lead them to extortion and return to their former rebellious attitude.
And why is that so dangerous?
Why? Because when you don't have jobs, anything could happen. Anything could happen.
The disappointment is palpable in places like this, a coffee shop frequented by Sofyan and his friends. He joined the rebels when he was barely a teenager. Now the men who agreed to swap weapons for jobs say they're still waiting.
Seutuhnya, bukan kayak gini lagi. Kalau sekarang belum apa itu. Masih kita dijepit-jepit gitu. Belum bebas sepenuhnya gitu. Cuma gini aja yang bebas.
They say foreign aid hasn't made an enduring difference. They feel duped by the Indonesian government, and worryingly, the talk here is about going back to war.
Mereka lakukan kalau di pihak pemerintah belum ada yang dilakukan untuk mantan-mantan kami itu belum ada. Yang ada cuman yang dari mana? Dari NGO lah yang ada. Kalau dari pemerintah memang nggak ada.
How close are you to going back to the hills and fighting?
Saya rasa kalau untuk keadaan yang seperti ini, kalau sekarang, itu kemungkinannya bisa mencapai di atas 50%. Karena kita mungkin sekarang dalam keadaan mau dijebak begitu. Jadi apabila kita udah terjebak dengan keadaan, bisa saja.
And while political discontent rumbles here and there, we found evidence of religious extremism and worse. Aceh is often called the veranda of Mecca because this is where Islam first came to the Indonesian archipelago more than 700 years ago. So it's no surprise that they take their faith very seriously. Sharia police patrol the streets, banning young lovers from holding hands and enforcing strict sex segregation even in the local salon.
Tapi yang salah ada tu yang melanggar dalam salah hanya makna ragam. Salah khusus bina. Yang salah khusus ragam je ragam ini, tapi ini lah. Nah.
And if you push your luck, Sharia punishment can sting. Just ask these two. Zakaria, a poor farmer, and his friend Muhammad Ali were caught gambling with their neighbours. The stakes were little more than $1, but the men were punished with a public caning.
Ya setelah dicambuk hari itu kan terasa malu Pak, anak-anak agak trauma Pak gitu. Ada yang nggak mau sekolah lagi hari itu, habis itu udah mulai sekolah lagi kita bujuk-bujuk gitu.
Kalau bagi saya ini rakyat kecil, keberatan bagi saya rakyat kecil ini dicambuk. Itu saya kurang terima saya. Itu bagi saya rakyat kecil ini kena cambuk. Tapi kalau orang-orang yang koruptor kena sanksi cambuk.
To Islamic radicals, Aceh seemed fertile ground, primed for jihad. It's in religious boarding schools known as pesantren that many of the next generation are getting their religious instruction. Schools like this one, the abode of the Holy Warrior, offer an Islamic education to the rural poor. But we've learned the activities here went way beyond rote learning the Quran.
Itu seruan jihad. Itu nggak boleh dipungkiri, agama manapun kalau sudah ditindas itu nggak boleh diam, ya kan?
This is the school's leader, Tunku Muslim. We've been told he's considered a dangerous radical, in charge of impressionable young minds.
Orang tanpa senjata itu nggak boleh dibunuh. Kalaupun ada dari orang-orang yang memerangi umat Islam, mereka memakai senjata, itu yang boleh dibunuh dalam Islam.
During our brief interview, he admitted he supported killing in the name of Islam, but revealed little more than that.
Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar. Sometime after we left the school, we obtained hard evidence of Tunku Muslim's activities.
Allahu Akbar.
Babaduknya merupakan benteng Aceh. Siap ada mana? Siap.
He raised this militia under the pretense of fighting Israel in the Holy Land, but his real focus was Aceh.
Allahu Akbar.
Jadi, Rawan Mandum Nasus kader yang pertama Mujahidin Aceh. Rawan Mandum Nasus selaku pahlawan revolusi Aceh. Siap untuk revolusi Aceh atau mana? Siap.
But some of these men wanted to go even further. They moved on from Tunku Muslim and formed their own terror cell called Al-Qaeda in Aceh. They're linked to terrorists responsible for the Bali bombing and the attack on the Australian embassy in Jakarta. The authorities are on patrol for the radicals and seem to have their measure. Here police are on a raid, trying to ferret jihadis out of the jungle. During our assignment, they shot a man they were pursuing, and 2 other militants have been killed since. 3 police are also dead, and the hunt claimed the lives of 2 civilians. After so much conflict and compromise, this latest episode's marked an incredible and unwelcome return to bloodshed and suspicion.
These radical groups thought that it was a safe haven for them to be here. It was against the reality. The understanding the Chinese have about Islam is different.
Forget about politics and religion. What most people want to do here is simply get on with their lives. It might not look like much, but Akmal Shukri and his friend Gunawan Abdul Manaf are building a new life here.
Kamu merasa sabuh panggilan jiwa untuk kamu bergerak yang lagi menopang demi keberhasilan di dalam kerja kitanya.
Just a few mountain tops east of Tunku Muslims training camp, these former foot soldiers for an independent Aceh are clearing the land to plant peanuts on a government-sponsored farm.
Jadi yang menyangkut dengan keadaan orang di Aceh, aku yang menyangkut keadaan dengan teroris. Kamu orang daripada mantan kombatan GAM siap untuk membantu TNI dan Polri untuk memburu teroris yang ada di Aceh.
These goats are called PE goats. They
and
are
back
not
down the
local
coast,
goats.
near the village of Rumput, Sarah Henderson's fostering a rural project as well. Aceh's first goat milk dairy.
These were all born here. All the new goats that are in there are pregnant.
Good for business, I guess?
Yes, it is good for business. And they're so cute. Oh, don't say that.
NGO lain misalnya, NGO lain memberi bantuan. Tapi Ibu Sarah ini sambil memberi bantuan, dia mendampingi kita. Tidak seperti NGO lain setelah memberikan bantuan, orang itu pergi.
I think that what is desperately needed is long-term sustainable projects. Train people, get them on their feet, get them where they can earn their own living. And you can't do that in a month, a year, 2 years. You just can't.
At the goat farm, Sumiati has a growing flock to tend and an obvious stake in the future. She recalls the horror of the tsunami like it was yesterday. Now the dairy offers a sense of hope that 5 years ago was almost washed away.
Ana nang kau ni, ibu ana telah mati dah. Jadi kadang pukul alah ancu aku mengkiamat. Sang hiu aku kiamat. Ya. Tapi dari hana apa lain. Untuk hana siap kamera, hana apa ni lain. Hana berhasil tak apa. Hana jut apa lain.
Sarah Henderson has no plans to close up shop in Aceh, but she will be taking the lessons she learned here elsewhere. She's heard the call of desperate need from the other side of the globe, and now she's setting off for Haiti.
We'll do the same thing, go into the outlying areas, the isolated rural areas, and see what we can do there.
Just as far down the road as you can go.
That's right. That is so true.